Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tousi, and this is your latest news coverage coming from Gaza following our first report earlier today. Hamas militants started to attack the IDF bases and soldiers with snipers and RPGs. There have been a number of casualties that have been reported. We're going to give you guys the names of the Israeli soldiers who have been killed. Over the last few hours, we've had a major counterattack by the IDF. We have our live feed from the Gaza Strip. The airstrikes have just basically kind of calmed down a little bit. We do have the sound. We're going to give you guys the latest follow-up because there has now been, we received some new videos which we're going to go through together, and there's some statements from President Trump, the Israeli government, and of course Hamas as well. All right, first things first. After the ceasefire violation earlier today, this morning, the Israeli fighter jets lit up the sky of Gaza. They hit two main targets around Khan Yunis, and we're going to show you the map as well as Rafah. Let's go to the video. Now, this, I believe, was from around Rafah, but if we show you on the map the location of the strikes, one towards the southern parts, literally by the border of between Egypt and Gaza, and of course we also had Khan Yunis, still towards the south but closer to the center of the Gaza Strip. In case you missed the previous update that we had, this happened after the Islamists in Gaza decided to F around, and now they're finding out. They crossed the yellow line again. That's the yellow line where the IDF have withdrawn towards, and they have decided to target a number of Israelis. We will give you guys the identity of those who have now been killed, but let's go to a close-up video of one of the airstrikes on in Gaza. And then we have a statement, a short moment from the Prime Minister's spokesperson in Israel. That's the moment. Get ready. There we go. Now. The Prime Minister's spokesperson said that we are, of course, in a ceasefire, but our soldiers can and will defend themselves. Obviously, if they're under attack, they have no other option but to actually defend themselves. So let's go to that moment.
Are the airstrikes happening within the yellow line? Are there civilians in the area? In terms of any airstrikes inside of the Gaza Strip, we are currently in a ceasefire, like we continue to say, but if there is a threat to our soldiers inside of the Gaza Strip, they are allowed to, of course, protect themselves and do what is needed to do.
Now, of course, we have to give you guys some information about the soldiers who have been killed by Hamas and Islamic Jihad operators. The two IDF soldiers have now been confirmed as Yaniv Kula, who was 26, and Itai Yavetz, who was only 21 years old, on the right-hand side. These two have now been killed in the attack in Rafah, and the escalation obviously is now going to be putting more pressure, not necessarily even on Hamas, it's actually putting more pressure on the mediators, including the United States. And we're going to show you what President Trump said earlier today during his interview. But let's go to the latest video from the Israeli attacks earlier on. Let's go. That's around Khan Yunis. Now, the latest confirmation or the claims in the reports suggest that the IDF have managed to eliminate 33 people in Gaza today. Most of the attacks and the destruction by the Israeli airstrikes was actually targeting one major underground tunnel network, but also two military buildings in Gaza. So obviously most of it actually been focusing on the sites rather than the actual militants. And the main reason for this is because most of the Hamas soldiers, once they knew that they had crossed the line, no pun intended, the actual line, yellow line, and they have done this, they knew that it would take within a few minutes or an hour or so until the Israeli Air Force start attacking. So most of them already went into hiding again. Compared to what you've been seeing over the last week or so, where Hamas have been pretending that they are controlling the streets of Gaza and they've been executing the anti-Hamas Gazans, all that, none of that happened today. In fact, earlier today, Hamas released a statement claiming that we found another hostage, dead body, remains of a hostage, and we wanted to give it to Israel, but because they're attacking us, we're not able to. Now, obviously, that's a lie. They're simply trying to buy more time. Earlier today, the Israeli political leadership did accept the military recommendation by the IDF to stop the entry of humanitarian aid shipments into Gaza until further notice. Over the last hour, after the conversation with the White House, President Trump has now asked Israel to reopen the crossings tomorrow. So the Gaza aid crossings will reopen tomorrow morning on Monday the 20th of October. The main reason for the closure, the temporary closure, was two main points. The main reason is that the Israelis say, well, if you don't release all the remains of hostages, despite the fact that you agreed to the whole deal, then we're not going to allow the aid to come in. But also, after what happened earlier today, when Hamas decided to attack Israelis, that also was another major point for this to happen. But of course, now the White House have asked Israel to reopen this tomorrow. Israelis have also shared the latest footage of the attack, which we can actually show you on this. This was released by the IDF themselves as they were hitting some of the sites around Rafah. And there is also, I think we might be getting some update from the White House quickly. Yes, we have a statement actually from the Israeli Defense Forces just come out now, saying, in accordance with the directive of the political echelon and following a series of significant strikes, the IDF has begun a renewed enforcement of the ceasefire following its violation by the terrorist organization Hamas. The IDF will continue and will respond forcefully to any violation of the agreement. So essentially, even though it was kind of funny because the Islamists were going around, they went to Al Jazeera and they said, we don't know what they're talking about, and it's the IDF that broke the ceasefire. And then Al Jazeera, accidentally, even they actually reported this. They showed the footage of Hamas crossing the line, the yellow line. And actually, we can show you this because the IDF decided to also publish this footage. They did a strike on a couple of the Hamas militants. So these are the guys in Beit Lahina. They crossed the yellow line in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, and then of course the drones were following them, and then they eliminated them. That was the end. And even Al Jazeera accidentally showed this, but obviously proving that they'd crossed the line. They also showed the location, and which obviously contradicted what Hamas were saying. In other news, some good news, I guess, despite, well, what is going on here? Despite the clashes escalating in Gaza, we can now report that Saudi Arabia has now indicated that they are willing to join the Abraham Accords. That's also been confirmed by President Trump. Now, of course, for Saudi Arabia, one of the major points was they don't care about Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, but they do care about the fact that they don't want the Palestinians to just be around the Middle East or North Africa. They want them to be in one place. So one of the reasons that Saudi Arabia have been pushing for a so-called Palestinian entity and a state is simply for that. And the Israelis, by actually agreeing to the peace deal, have made it slightly more comfortable for Saudi Arabia and the others to join the Abraham Accords. Now, it hasn't been completed yet. There's going to be a lot of negotiations, a lot of ups and downs. It's still going to take some time, but it is great progress. And going forward, the position from the Israeli government is going to be that, wait, we've been cooperating with the US, with Egypt, with even Turkey and Qatar. We are even listening to Saudi Arabia. We are willing to do all these things. But if Hamas are now going to be breaking the ceasefire almost on a daily basis, then you can only point your fingers at one group. That's Hamas. Because until now, for the past 2 years, there have been a number of groups who could have said, well, Israelis are going too far in Gaza, apparently. Even Saudi Arabia had to basically stay quiet. But now, everybody's basically, the narrative is, we all want peace, apart from one group, which is Hamas. So they've just cornered the nutters in Gaza. And if you go up to President Trump quickly, he once again warned Hamas that they will be forcibly removed if they refuse to disarm. And of course, he's been indicating this for the past few days. Let's go to the president.
Is there a timeline to get Hamas to disarm, in your mind?
Not a timeline, not a hard line, but we're going to see how it all works out. They've lived there for a long time. They're very violent, as you understand. You've been covering it for a long time. But we're going to find out. Don't forget, 50,000 of them have been killed, okay? 1,200, but Israel can say that we killed 50,000. You know, they get replaced by other people, young people. But we're going to find out. So it's not a hard timeline, but it's a line in my own mind. And at a certain point, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then we'll have to do it for them.
Yeah, so the same narrative has been going on for the past few days. I think President Trump simply wants to not necessarily buy time, but mostly not rush it, because I think everybody knows at this point that Hamas are not just going to randomly disarm. But the longer you leave it and the longer it stays like this, it will expose their Islamists even more, again, to make it easier for President Trump to go to even Turkey and obviously Saudi, Egypt, and all these guys to say, look, we all agreed to this plan. It's these nutters. So I'm going to give a green light to the IDF to finish them off. And you all agreed that Hamas have to disarm. It's very different to a year ago. It's very different to 2 years ago. Because all those countries around Israel, they weren't really publicly saying that Hamas needs to leave Gaza, right? They were just criticizing Israel and the IDF. But President Trump and Netanyahu have basically, again, cornered them. They got them all to sign an agreement saying we all agree that Hamas, publicly speaking, Hamas need to disarm. So President Trump could take his time. Could take a few days, could take a few weeks, but the inevitable outcome will have to be for Hamas to be removed, whether voluntarily or forcibly. Now, the IDF have also released the latest footage. This is about the tunnel, the underground tunnel network that they've discovered. They used, that's the video. The latest strikes in Gaza used over 120 munitions to destroy a 6-kilometer Hamas tunnel in Gaza. 6 kilometers. So they believed that a lot of the Islamists that also crossed the yellow line to attack the Israelis earlier, and all those who've been violating the ceasefire, they may have actually gone to hide in that tunnel. So we don't actually know about the damage underground, but we do know, well, the report suggests that 33, 35 have been killed on the streets of Gaza. Now, senior source from Tel Aviv says that Israel doesn't need to protect the ceasefire. Violation means response. Another one also said that the zone between the yellow line and the Philadelphia corridor hides tunnels and explosives. Hamas are still waiting to strike, which again, this is not really a speculation or some sort of fear-mongering. This is actually the direct statement coming from the Hamas leadership earlier on, doubling down in Qatar, saying that not only we're not going to disarm, but we are regrouping, we are going to strengthen our base, and we will regain control of Gaza. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. Hamas will never be able to take back control of Gaza. They're not professional enough. They don't have the resources. And there's a lot of international pressure from all sides, including the US. But what they can do is just continue to cause destruction. They could do that for a very long time. Anyway, there is some reaction here. David, thank you for your super chat, saying that to be fair, the ceasefire lasted way longer than I thought it would. Birmingham next. Well, ceasefire in Birmingham? Well, I mean, on a technical level, we still have the ceasefire. The ceasefire was broken or violated, but it still remains in place because Israel still controls a big chunk of Gaza. So if they had fully withdrawn, that would have been... And you can now see why Netanyahu was so reluctant to the whole idea of when the Europeans, including Macron and Starmer, were suggesting that the IDF should just completely leave Gaza, right, immediately. You see why they were reluctant, because they've only withdrawn to a tiny line, just a couple of kilometers, and this is already happening, the attacks on Israelis. Imagine what would have happened if the IDF had actually listened to Emmanuel Macron. Ivan says they must be colorblind. Wait, what does this refer to? This from the beginning of the live stream. Give me context. Okay. Carter says, goodbye Hamas. Nice not knowing, yeah? They don't really help themselves. Rubaid says this was going to happen. Everyone knew, including the US administration. So this situation must have been factored in, even designed for it. Yeah. See, finally, someone gets it, by the way, because there's been a lot of people who think now they are suddenly experts of geopolitics. They're sitting in their mum's bedrooms and basements saying, President Trump is so naive. Do you really think Pentagon and the White House are naive to not know what could happen, what could be the next move? Including President Trump himself, who always tries to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the game. Doesn't necessarily mean he will always make the right move, but he will be, obviously he's a businessman, so he would try to speculate what could happen if he makes this move or that move. Israel needs to start declaring sovereignty over land for every violation. Imagine, that will be a very robust response. Every time there's a violation, Israel could just say, this bit is now ours. This bit is now ours. Just slowly take back control of Gaza. The problem with that is that but there was what the left would call ethnic cleansing in 2005, when the Jews and Israelis were literally dragged out of their homes. They were kicked out of Gaza. Gaza was part of Israel, always was. And then they gave it to, obviously, they brought in a lot of some of the Arabs and North Africans. A lot of people came from Egypt, and then they basically called themselves Palestinian, right? And these guys, they're not going to go anywhere. And do you really think you can do what you did, what happened in 2005? Because in 2005, 2006, the Israeli government went in and dragged their own citizens out of Gaza. So technically, you can do it to your own citizens. I mean, it's not really a good idea going to your own citizens and dragging them away, but you can't really do it to other people. It's not a good look. The optics are going to be very bad, even if it's the United Nations doing it, even if it's the United States doing it. So you can't really get rid of the Gazans. You can't send them anywhere else. They have to stay there. And so, which means if hypothetically Israel is going to take Gaza back, that makes it politically impossible. You can't live next to Gazans. 99.9% of them are anti-Semitic, if not 100%. So they don't have to be Hamas, but they are anti-Semitic. They're not going to be happy living next to the Jews. Even when some of them were still in Gaza at the time, in 2003, 2002, they were not happy living next to the Jews. That's why they kept attacking them. And that's why there had to be that deal. And people thought it was a good idea, the agreement for Israel to leave Gaza. Now, just got the joke. Ivan said earlier, they must be colorblind. Now, in a way, he meant, he said, crossing the yellow line. True. That's very true. Oh, my God. Also, it's not like civilians crossing the line. So people are saying, well, how do you know where the line is? These poor Palestinians in Gaza, they don't know. It's not necessarily civilians randomly cross. It's Islamic Jihad and Hamas fighters with guns crossing the line. If someone's walking with a gun crossing the yellow line, I don't think you need to question them, saying, well, what we need to do is ask them if they know where the line is. They got guns. You got to shoot them. Anyway. No reaction. Where is Femi and Owen Jones when you need them? They're just waiting for more casualties in Gaza so they could freak out about it. These guys have been protesting against the ceasefire over the last 9 days. Trading civilians for terrorists, yet they'll calm things down. Yeah, that's not a good idea. Morgan says Hamas is checking boundaries like a 2-year-old and everyone is letting them. Well, Israel is not letting them, so... It's the only language that they understand, though. Start with Judea and Samaria. See, that's the thing. So Judea and Samaria, a big chunk of it, should go back to the previous border, previous boundaries, right? But everything goes back to the conversation around Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem. That becomes the big issue. It's not even... If you give a huge chunk of Judea and Samaria to the Arabs... They're still not going to be happy because they want Al-Aqsa, right? And then they're still not going to be happy because they don't want Israel to exist. But they really want Al-Aqsa, which is ironic because, of course, that was the Arab occupiers, the Islamic occupiers, literally building a mosque on top of a temple. Literally. So it's not even some sort of euphemism. And everybody seems fine with that. The United Nations, yeah, of course, yeah. Arabs just randomly ended up in that land even though they had no connection to that land, no history. There was no Arab in that part of the world. They were all in Saudi and Yemen, what we call Yemen now. And then suddenly they just ended up there. And then they decided to build a mosque. And now we just say anybody from that area is basically Arab. No, it's not. You can't just rewrite history. Oh, dear God. All right, so what's going on in Gaza? Let's bring back the sound. There we go. All right, let's see if it's quiet now. Should be relatively quiet. We did receive some of the updates earlier. Hang on. Yeah. Okay. Earlier on, we had the celebrations as obviously more hostages were released from the hospital after 2 years in Gaza. And what we're going to do, 150, we're going to show you some of that. Okay. Stay with me. All right, while we wait for that. Taking its time, by the way. I'm just going to get some reaction from you guys. What? Oh. David says, someone tell Greta to warm up the sails. It's kicking off again. You can't park that there, mate. Yeah, what happened to Greta, by the way? So I think it will be ideal if Greta goes back to climate change as an issue, because I think it's been a while. It's been a while. I think we kind of need some entertainment. There's a lot of other things that she could do as well, but to be fair, she's not very good at anything. Let's quickly go to Israel. This has been happening over the last couple of hours. The survivors of the Hamas captivity have now been released from the hospital. Right. I love that song. Well, that's the remix version. Great. We're gonna get copyrighted. So that's outside the hospital as The hostages are starting to get released. Well, discharged. So the last 9 days or so, they had to stay in the hospital to recover. It's a lot of flags. If this were happening in the UK, Keir Starmer will arrest every single person for flying the flag of their own country. If you do that with the Union flag or the English flag, St. George's flag, you will be arrested. Is that the balcony of a... Oh, that's not the hospital. That's that's some residential building, I think. Although they're filming some people in there, so could be the hospital. Yeah, can't tell. Yeah, if anybody is familiar with that, let me know. Oh my god. Insane scenes. I can't help myself. We are gonna get copyrighted there. Oh my god. Well, they're happy. Oh yeah, that's the residential building, says Blue Sapphire. I thought it was a hospital. The hospital's on the other side. Yeah. My god. Yeah. The BBC will call them far-right hooligans. Far-right football. Also, I'm a little bit envious because Tommy Robinson is currently there. Well, not there, but he's in Israel. And when I was there, which was, what was it, back in April, May, we were just getting rockets being launched at us by the Houthis in Yemen. But Tommy's gone during a ceasefire, so amazing. So that's Meva Sarazan. This is outside the hospital. I'm trying to see which hospital actually. Yeah, that's the one. Where the hostages are starting to get discharged after a week or so in recovery. Anyway. Okay. I can't. I need that playlist. Yeah, if anybody has the playlist for the all the top songs, send me an email. Obviously at team@tousi.tv. Yeah, I do have one playlist which obviously has the obvious songs like Am Israel Chai and a few others, but I need the full playlist. Come on, if you're watching this from Israel. Alright. So also Tommy, I saw earlier because Emily Schrader texted me. Let me see. Let me show you what Emily sent. This is what is going on? Emily Schrader texted me a photo with Fleur and Tommy. Apparently Fleur and Emily interviewed Tommy, which is the first. Usually it's the other way around. But yeah, they're having a great time without me. Thank you, Tommy. It's fine. As I said earlier today, at least I have access to cheeseburgers. Ha! Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. We'll find out what's going to happen tomorrow. What you can do in the meantime is join Tousi TV Plus to get full access to the channel, documentaries, our uncensored podcast, chat forum, original series, everything else in about 1 hour if you're watching this from now. 1 hour from now, which will be 9 p.m. UK time, I will be on our chat forum to have a conversation with the lovely members on our private Discord server. So I will see you guys on the other side. If you're not a member, join today, right now on Tousi.tv. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tousi, and we are the media.